that's a pretty good intro, right? Good music.
Very solid. I like
Yeah.
that.
I just want to bob my head the whole time, and then I realize, oh, I got to start talking soon. So then
Yeah. Who made the music for that? Was that something you did? Someone that you knew?
no, I just went. YouTube has the copyright free
Oh,
music, and
okay.
I don't, I could have written it, but I don't like, I don't have that kind of time. I'm a musician, but still, at the same time, it's like, but I edited
Fair
it
enough.
all together. I did all the editing and everything.
More than I can do. So you're 10,000 steps ahead of me, man.
Well, it's I was born with 4 legs. I don't know why, but I don't really. That's why I don't go out. I don't want people to. They ask me questions. What's the logistics? Do the
4 legs
4
can I
legs
ride
mean?
you? Are you a horse? Yeah, we don't know anymore.
It's very They go, which side peas? It's just. And I try to explain to them. I go, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm better than you. So.
Nice.
Mr. Walsh, Mr. Matthew of the Walsh, the House of Walsh,
Yes, sir.
right? Do you do that? Do you
Yeah,
tell
thanks for
people?
having me.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I nowadays I actually have to tell people. So it's this. I don't really like social media, which is terrible for someone who's trying to do creative anything. Whether
Yeah.
you're a writer, a musician, or you kind of have to embrace the social media. I don't, but there's another gentleman out there with my same name who. I just think he's terrible. I think most people objectively think he's terrible, and I know for a fact he has cost me dates because when you Google this, he'll be the first one. And we kind of look like we could be cousins.
Yeah.
And it's like Superman. Clark Kent, Superman. He has a beard, brown hair, and glasses. I don't have glasses, and so that's the burden I have to carry while trying to make my own name in this industry. Is not that guy.
Well, you might have to do the Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
He changed his name. His real name's not Michael Keaton. So, because there was already a Michael Keaton in the Union.
Well, I'm reminded of the movie Office Space, the guy whose name is Michael Bolton. And he's why should I change my name? He's the one who sucks. So,
Yeah, similar. So, is your professional name Matthew, or do you introduce yourself as Matt whenever you're in a meeting?
Yeah, I just go by Matt. Just formalize. I think it just looks better to spell your full name. That's just a personal thing, but I go by Matt almost exclusively.
See, I go by Thomas J. Bellezza. Anytime I introduce myself, they go, "What's your name?" I go, "Thomas J. Bellezza." And then they'll be like, "So anyway, tell me, Tom." I go, "No, it's Thomas J. Bellezza. It's one long word." And then what that does, it makes people not want to talk to me. And then I basically feel like I'm accomplishing my original goal.
Well, it's just so many syllables. Thomas J. Bellezza. I mean, I get exhausted before I'm at the end of your name there, but it's catchy. It flows.
It's
so
Italian,
Yeah.
As many letters as you could get in there. We need to. I shortened my middle name. I made a J. Just the letter.
Yeah, well, there you go. That works.
Do you have a middle name, or you're like, I don't want people to know that?
I have a middle name. It's Philip.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I actually have an alias. I don't know how much time we have on this thing, but I've got a lot of stories. So my mother, I'm the third child, and she never went to the hospital. She always did midwives, home births, all that stuff. And her first 2 children were boys. She's pregnant with me, and same thing, midwife, but she thought it was gonna be a girl because I felt different.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. And so she's getting ready to go into labor. The midwife isn't available. So for the first time in her life, she has to go to a hospital. And as you can imagine, it's like crazy panic. They're like, "Who are you? You're pregnant. Holy crap. What's your insurance?" And then I come out and she's like, "Oh, it's a boy." And so they're like, "Hey, we need a name." Yeah. So she just kind of panic ordered Matthew. So my name is Matthew Philip Walsh. But then after having a little bit of time to be like, "Gosh, I have a third son." She's like, "I kind of like the name John better."
Yeah.
So she just started calling me John, but never changed my birth certificate. And I grew up thinking my name was John Matthew Philip Walsh. Went to school, everything like that. And then it wasn't until my 16th birthday, I'm at the DMV filling out the paperwork, and my mom was like, "Wait, you have to fill this out as Matthew." And the first time in my life, she tells me that story in the DMV. And I'm like, "All right, thank you, Mother." So I finished high school, went to year college as John because that was my name, but then I joined the Army and they needed a birth certificate. So I kind of, from that point on, started going by Matt. But my
Yeah,
family and friends from high school still call me John. Everything
that's
else
funny.
is Matt.
And in the Army, whatever, they called you Walsh, right? They were like, Walsh, get over here. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I played a lot of sports growing up. So Walsh is very familiar. I didn't realize there were so many Walshes until I left wherever I was at. But I was
Yeah.
almost always the only Walsh people had ever met. So it worked out well. And then I got to the real world and I was like, oh, not that unique.
Well, it's like a British Smith,
Kind of, yeah, we're kind of everywhere.
Yeah, you just waltz right into people's lives, and
Yeah,
hey, oh, so you
I
don't
like
want
it.
to go by Matthew P. Walsh.
At this point, I'm fair game to whatever. I'll even go by hey you or
Hey,
what's up
you,
guy.
just not P. Don't call me P. I'm not P.
Yeah, I'm not peeing.
Yeah,
I'm just matting here.
yeah, no peeing. We'll just put the mat down. And what about like Thew? Like, have you tried different? Like some like what's his name? Topher Grace.
Mhm.
His real name is crap, I forgot. Christopher, I think, or something. Well, anyway,
Been a while.
Topher is the last part of his name.
Hmm.
So, like, like he was just like, I just wanted to have a unique name for the union. So, have you ever been like, some people call me John, some people call me Matt. Maybe I'll be like John Matthew. Like just switch it up.
Or
Just
when I'm really tired, I'll just be phew.
Phew, phew, I almost had to do that. Is that all right? That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've ever listened to any of my episodes because we know each other. So
Yeah. I have. It's been a while because you've been. How many years have you been doing these now, or how long have you been doing this now?
what is this? My third show?
Third show. Okay. Because
Third
I definitely
episode,
look at
right?
your. I know that you send out a lot of like email content, and I love the updates. It's usually
Yeah.
about quarterly, if I'm right.
I do.
So
I do a monthly, or sometimes I'll skip a month just so it's not annoying. But
yeah.
I've actually been. This is my fourth season. You are the second guest of the fourth season.
Wow. Awesome. Wow.
Yeah, and
Thank you for having me.
yeah,
But
anytime.
yeah, I take the casual glance, but life is often just really busy, so it's hard for me to. I'm so far behind on like TV shows. I still haven't even finished Game of Thrones, as terrible as that is to say.
I'll tell you right now. There's thrones in that show. Spoiler
I,
alert.
I'm 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 good with. Some people don't like spoilers. I actually don't necessarily love them, but I don't care about them. But yeah, some people are really bothered by spoilers. Not me so much. I think that allows me to focus more on the other aesthetics of what's going on in the movie or the show or something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, anyway, to each their own.
So what you're saying is you don't mind spoilers, so you've watched every single one of the Fast and the Furious movies, no matter how many spoilers are in that film.
Those movies, I gave up after I think the third or fourth. I don't understand them, but again, they make a lot of money. There's a market out there. People love them.
Yeah.
They get some amazing actors. They're onto that. So, massive kudos to them. It's just not a franchise I follow religiously because it just seems. I'm a very logical kind of person, so I like things that follow what the promise is.
Oh, like Game of Thrones.
Yes, lots of games, lots of thrones. um, but there's like TV shows or movies where like they'll have a core premise or
Yeah.
a promise, so to speak, and maybe they do it for the first episode, but then they completely lose the premise.
Well, well, there is a difference between a premise and a promise.
Yes. So I think the one that stands out to my mind is a movie or a TV show called The Last Man on Earth.
Yeah.
Um,
Why? Right?
because
No,
the
it's
very
called Why,
first,
isn't it? It's called Why, The Last Man. It's about it's the last. All the men have been they died off, and this guy lives, and it's filled with women. Isn't that Why, The
no,
Last Man?
no.
Like the letter Y, or am I? Do
This
you
is
know
a
what I'm
different
talking
one. There,
about?
it was actually called The Last Man on Earth, and it was a comedian. Crap, what's the? So it's supposed to be a comedy, and it'll come to me. But basically, everyone
Yeah,
died
it's
from a
Will
plague.
Forte.
Yeah,
Or
Will
something.
Fernet.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he's the last man on Earth for literally 90% of the first episode, and then there's a woman. It's like, all right, well, you're still the last man. He meets another woman. Then I think by the second or third episode, then another man shows up. And before the end of the first season, there's like, a couple dozen people running around. And it's like, well, you're not even the last person, or like at this point, you're just survivors.
Yeah.
And so that was very
misleading.
Out. Yeah, the premise is thrown out even by the end of the first, like, so stuff like that kind of irks me as a viewer.
And what's a promise?
I think that one also works for the promise, but Fast and Furious, they're not always fast or furious. I think that's a promise they don't always make. But
well, a promise, like for the last man on Earth, the promise isn't that he will be the last man on Earth. The promise is based in the first act, the ordinary world, leading to the inciting incident, and then the response or the immediate response to the inciting incident, which is in that first 3 beats. You're going to discover there is a promise, which is the promise is you aren't the last man on Earth, and who else exists? How many people exist? Because by the end of the first episode, he meets the girl, right? Yeah. So that the first episode should technically be the ordinary world inciting incident reaction to inciting incident. So, or in some cases, it's the ordinary world and the inciting incident, and it's left on a cliffhanger. And then the next episode, they explore the reaction. But needless to say, the promise is he is not the last man. On Earth, and we're going to explore.
And they certainly just should have named the show that. Maybe that episode could have been that, but not necessarily the show Last Man on Earth.
Well, his ordinary world, the ordinary world is that he is the last man on Earth.
Yeah.
And he's existed with this world mentality for X amount of time. And then it's challenged, because that's what writing is, 101. It's all challenge the premise.
Yeah.
Right? So if he was just the only man on Earth, you're not really challenging the premise. And if it's just him surviving, then you get Will Smith, right? And then even in that, he's not the last man on Earth. He's not the lone survivor. You know, it turns out, spoiler alert, the vampires aren't the only people. There are other people. So if you create a premise and don't challenge that premise, for example, how far are you in Game of Thrones?
Season that's up to the last season, just not the.
All right.
So it's 7. I think there's 8 total.
So the challenge is that the main Robert, right, who dies of boredom, because he got bored. The premise is that he's the king and he's the ruler, and then they challenge that because the promise is that it's going to be a Game of Thrones, but it's really just 2 people. It's the Dragon Lady and then the Lannisters. So imagine the thrones were never being challenged, or even the King of the North. That becomes a thing, and then you have the other king that's challenging the Robert's death. So if none of that happened, then the promise of it being a Game of Thrones would be thrown out.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So
it worked very well for them. They did 10 years, 8 seasons for that. So yeah, it was.
I feel they only did like 3 seasons, and then they were like, "What's the paycheck?"
Yeah,
but
some do that.
It's difficult.
So what's?
But yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
What's something you're watching or invested in that maybe is either unique enjoyment or you look forward to? Is there anything that's new or current, or maybe you're watching something old?
There's very few new things where I'm like, this is the bomb, mostly I'm like, this is a bomb. But I like going back to my favorites. I like going back to my comfort shows, my comfort movies. I try more new movies than I try more new shows, because a movie is like, if it's 2.5 hours and it's bad, I'm done. But if it's like, I always give a show 3 episodes. So like True Blood, I gave that show 3 episodes and I'm like, I'm already in, but it's the worst thing I've ever seen. But let me see where it goes. And I was like, the first season isn't too bad by the end. And then the second season, I was like, what are they doing? And it just got worse and worse, because it's not very much like the books. But I believe a medium change deserves a change in story. Like, you can't just duplicate, because just read the book if you want the exact thing. But like the core premise and the essence. I like that Lafayette lived. He dies in the first book. I like that he lived. in the
Yeah.
show, but because he was a strong actor and a strong character. Unfortunately, he passed away in real life. But the big thing though is like I gave it 3 episodes, and now I'm like, ugh. So I had to do all 5 seasons or whatever it was, and I was trapped. So I'm very I'm very I won't just jump into a show.
I'm kind of like that with like Netflix. I have no trust in Netflix because they extend shows where I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, I've never watched this. It doesn't appeal to me. But that'll last 5, 6 plus seasons, and then they'll drop a show, and I'm like, oh, I really like this thing, and then they cancel it after a season. It's like, well, what the heck? So I have a rule with Netflix. I can't. It has to make it at least 3 seasons before I'll even like give it a shot, because they leave you on those cliffhangers and they don't extend it, and then you're just like, oh, you effers, you got me again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of more recent shows, and I don't know how if you're getting this, but I feel like so many people talk about these shows and are like, oh, this is amazing, you really need to watch it, and they're really, really bought into it, and they're so excited and passionate about how amazing this series is for the first season. And then it's been around a couple more seasons, but then they just stop talking about it. I think one that stands out, several like Apple Plus series kind of stand out. Like, what was the one with Ben Stiller where they go to work and their brain is turned off or something like that?
I don't have Apple
Severance?
Plus.
I don't either. Yeah, but I think it's called like Severance, where like they go into work and they do some sort of mysterious work stuff, but when they leave, their memory is wiped, so they don't know what they do at work. Paycheck, yeah.
It's the movie Paycheck.
Yeah,
with Ben Affleck. Yeah.
And so yeah, basically that. But if that was your day-to-day business, but yeah, so many people are high on that one, and I haven't heard anything since the first season. And I kind of get a lot of that vibe with a lot of different other shows. Where, not saying that they're not good or bad. I haven't watched them, so I can't speculate. But I just know that the chatter does seem to stop after the first season, which maybe is indicative. I don't know.
I mean, it's good that the chatter stops, because I think the blowing a show up, like I didn't watch Lost or Game of Thrones or a majority of shows for years after they were done, because people were like, you need to watch, this is great. And I'm just like, I don't trust any of your opinions.
Yeah.
Because you're saying this is great, but you also like this show, and you said this movie changed your life. And I'm like, it's Barbie, and like I don't, but the way I look at it is, especially as a writer, I can't judge a person's enjoyment the same way because I can't watch a show or a movie the same way someone else does. Because I went to see Death in Vienna with Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, I watched that.
Within the first maybe 14 or 15 minutes, somebody popped on the screen, and I was like, oh, that's the killer. And then that's who the killer ended up being, just because my brain just understands beats and discovery. And then like they almost got me with a loop towards the end. I was like, there's no way they're gonna make this person. Oh, they're oh, okay, I see what they did. They looped it, but I can't like Wheel of Time, great books, but I'm watching the show and I'm like, I don't understand what they're doing. Like I don't understand the actor choices. I don't understand the editing. I don't understand the direction of the script. A majority of characters that shouldn't be as annoying as they should. They are. They're just like, I don't need you. Leave me alone. And everybody has an attitude, except and it's like I rather see powerful characters who are vulnerable and are able to be you're able to hear them and see them, but not be like, oh, they beat everybody up. Oh, they got stabbed, but they still beat everybody up. They lost all their powers, but they're still the most powerful person. Beware
of the overuse of plot armor, where setting people up where no matter what, because eventually the audience picks up on that. They're like classic one was like Heroes, if you remember that TV show. Yep. Like how many times those people lose their powers, get their powers, lose their powers, get their powers. It's like, all right, enough of this yo-yo. I don't care anymore. I know that this fourth time this guy loses, like he's going to get it back. And same thing with like Harry Potter, you know, like Harry's clearly not going to die because I know there's like 5 more books to go.
Yeah.
Or, you know, just especially when you are adapting something, I think, you know,
Well, Harry Potter does die.
At the end and then comes back, but yes.
Yeah, he does, but he does die. He has to.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. He had to. That was foreshadowing. But yeah. So spoiler for those who don't like spoilers.
Yeah. By the way, who's Harry Potter? No.
Yeah.
Is that movie with the school?
Yeah.
I agree with you, but the thing is, the protagonist shouldn't die, right? That's ultimately going to be there. I mean, sometimes they kill him off, like in End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. Spoiler, but like the reality is, going back to challenging, that's what makes the story. The character not dying is not the interesting part. The interesting part is how they struggle and then their choices, because every character arc is based on a position, challenging that position, the consequences of that position, and then their results will either completely change their position, slightly change their position, or not change their position at all. And then it all repeats once they're put into another situation where their position is challenged. You know, and you have to sometimes change it completely, somewhat, or not at all. You have to pick one. But they don't always do that with writing. What I see in shows today, I don't see that.
And I think that's what I was trying to get at is you're 100% right. And it's kind of that the protagonist should live, yes, but how you write that they live, you know, as a screenwriter, that's the trick and the talent, skill, and the adaptation of that from the screenwriter to the director and the actors. But basically, as this first step is writing it, and don't be, lack of better, but don't be lazy with it, but be creative with it. Don't make your protagonist passive. You know, don't make them, you know, like John Wick makes a great use of it, you know, the plot armor, by giving him bulletproof, you know, suits and all these things that basically help him be invulnerable. But not every story is going to have a literal bulletproof vest or suit. So you have your protagonist be an active part of their escape, or an active part of outwitting the villain, rather than relying on the villain to always be stupid or you know, this or that. Like helping make a strong protagonist rather than relying on plot armor.
If I may devil's advocate that, you can write extremely strong narratives with passive characters. But for the audience listening, and my amusement, because I always like hearing people's perspectives on keywords. When you say active characters, what do you mean?
Like taking like trying to think like.
Well, just go. Describe active first.
Just actively doing, like they're not. I'm not the protagonist, and someone else solves the problem for me. Like I get out of a situation because the villain ran out of bullets. Or because they're an expert marksman every other time, but whenever they shoot at me, they somehow miss. And because I'm just standing still, like I need to, if I'm the main character, outwit my villain, my you know, antagonist. And
or can't they be overcame? Like, can't the villain outwit them? Right?
Yeah,
because now that's interesting, right?
Exactly, but have it more than, because I think in a lot of movies I see nowadays, it is a lot of ineptitude that helps people get out of situations, or
the Deus Ex Machina reality.
Exactly. You know, there's so much reliance on luck or circumstance, or just, well, that was fortuitous, rather than characters showing and expressing actively their wits by using their environment to outwit somebody or get out of a thing or hide from a thing. Or, you know, I also know Kung Fu, to quote.
If I may, would you agree with this definition? Active characters are proactive instead of reactive.
Yes.
So that would be a
10-second or 5-second way of describing when I took 2 minutes to go through. But yes,
well,
that's perfect.
Albert Einstein says, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it enough. right? But
Yeah.
but that's where teaching comes in. When you teach a lot, you learn how to simplify. So that's the only reason I have that definition in my pocket,
Yeah.
because that's what I do. I do developmental editing and everything. So
No, and that's perfect. And that's exactly it. I help a lot of other people with their screenplays. I give them just free notes kind of thing of just helping buddies, because they read my stuff, I'll read their stuff. And that's one of the lessons I come across a lot, is that you've dumbed down the character, and the characterization is very important. You were touching on that earlier, that you like those sorts of characters where they're fleshed out, they're proactive, not reactive. They make you want to care for them. Sort of like True Bloods, I guess.
But you could also care for a character that is not proactive, that is reactive.
Yes.
Because if a plot-driven story exists, that's important too. I like character-driven stories. Don't get me wrong. But in reality, all stories are driven by plot. Because if there's no plot, it doesn't matter who the characters are. At the foundation level, every story is plot-driven. It just so happens, are we experiencing it through the characters? That's what makes it character driven. Basically, their perception. Like John Wick is really plot driven.
Yeah,
he's just running through the gauntlet. And
I just killed my dog, and now you stole my car, and I'm just trying to just leave me alone.
By the way, he's reactive
for the most part. Yeah,
because right.
No, he absolutely is, but to his credit, he proactively gets out of most of it. Well, not all. There's a lot of times where people are like, out of respect, I don't kill you. It's like, all right.
Well, so the movie starts off with he's passive.
Yeah.
They come in, they beat the crap out of him. Spoiler, they kill his dog. And then he reacts to that behavior.
Yes.
But he's just going at it. He's a juggernaut, and he's not going to stop. But every time somebody comes at him, he has to react to the new situation. So he's still technically a passive character based on being reactive, but he's proactive at trying to survive.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can add elements. Like, when I hear people give it, you're being a little characters are passive, and you're like, but what's the story that you're trying to tell? Because the idea of tools and terminology is that you understand it enough to mess with it, to break the rules. And it's like my least favorite advice is show, don't tell, because it's really show, sometimes tell. Right? But like, people get nervous. First time writers are like, oh, I got to show everything. I can't tell. And then everything is just like, we don't care that the shoe that they grabbed felt the velvet across their fingertips as they move the cushion through their, like,
that's
they
too
put
much.
the shoe
You're
on.
writing a novel. That's not a screenplay. That's a novel. Too much.
Yeah, but even
fine
still,
detail.
But, you know what I'm saying? Like, because the show's about writing in general, but you can show, you can tell in screenplays too. Telling in screenplays is someone going, listen, we only have 20 minutes to get in there, stop the bomb, and get out. That's called starting the clock, right?
Yep.
Which is a very simple technique that people use, but that's exposition, which is telling. Telling is exposition. So how do you show that? You show the audience the bomb ticking.
Yep.
You don't
like in the movie High Noon, you've got the clock in the center of town, just like tick, 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 waiting for noon every time. And something you said that I love, and I say this to everyone too, you have to know the rules before you break them. And so that you're conscious of why you're doing it, so that you know where that fine line is, and like it's purpose driven rather than accidental, that can lead you to other mistakes. And for me as a screenwriter, it was something that I really focused on initially, was knowing the format of what a textbook perfect screenplay looks like. But then quickly learned through feedback and talking to people and all the competitions and all that sort of stuff, is it's also very subjective, because you might get read by someone who's a TV guy, or someone who loves comedies, or someone who loves action, and you may have sent them something that's not quite in their genre. But also there's a huge difference between just read any director's screenplay, read a Quentin Tarantino screenplay, read Terrence Malick's screenplay, J.J. Abrams, and they all there's a difference between like, I'm the director, I'm going to write this because I know I'm going to film it because it's funded,
Yeah, it's
and
the
a
director's
spec script. Yeah, versus like a spec script where, in my instance, like I'm a nobody trying to pitch to executives. You know, it really needs to hit a lot of beats. It needs to have a lot of personality and character, but it can't be so whimsical in the sense like I can't write like Quentin Tarantino and
Well, I
expect
disagree
someone.
with that statement.
Well, I mean, like I can, but like as without credentials,
No,
it's
you
hard for me to do
can.
that.
Well, why do people pick up scripts? You tell me.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is like good timing, good
So,
script,
all
good
right.
story, good plot, good character. A lot of different things like hit at
So,
once.
what's that have to do with the structure?
Um, I think it also times like who you're pitching to, how you're getting it to them, what the scenario at which it occurs. Is this like a class I paid for? Is this a competition? Is this a
Which I would
elevator
recommend
pitch?
don't do, though. Like, don't, if
Yeah,
you're a
there's
writer out there, don't do competitions, don't pay to be seen, because
yeah,
now you're automatically thrown to the back of the room because you're not in the industry, even if
yeah,
you think you are. And the
yeah,
thing is, people want to work with people in the industry. And someone like Quentin Tarantino was already doing cleanup scripts. He was already writing scripts for other people. True
yeah.
Romance was a script he couldn't direct, but he
Mm-hmm.
was able to build and cultivate relationships that led him to that opportunity, which led to Pulp Fiction and the monster Harvey Weinstein. But like the reality of the situation, though, is that
Yeah.
his script wasn't the greatest script in the world that got him Harvey Weinstein paying for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because he still had to cast certain actors in it for it to get greenlit,
Yeah.
right? It's the same thing with Good Will Hunting. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were not Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And the
Yeah.
original Zuckerberg that was attached to it was the only reason they even got doors open. And then he left the project anyway. They had to get Robin Williams. They knew it, especially because they wanted to be in it. Matt Damon wanted to act in it, but they were also writing it. And they're like, who are these chumps? And every
Yeah.
other word was a curse word. And they're like, you got to take out some curse words. It's 273 curse words. We need it to be a PG-13. It's a hard R. And they're like, no, this is they're the curses are us saying and like, we're
Yeah.
from Boston. But my point to that is, if you rely on what quote unquote sells, your script has already failed. It's the same thing with novels. If you write a novel based on what you think will sell, you have already failed. And the reason you would even get picked up because of a script or a novel is because you have a voice, that you're saying something unique that catches their eye. If you don't have credentials, right? But that's why I also tell writers, get involved in the industry. Like you should be working as a PA, not a writer. You're not a writer yet because you're not in the industry. But that doesn't mean don't write. Keep writing, but
Yeah.
you have to get involved. One of
Yeah.
my closest, right? Well, I have someone I mentor, many people I mentor, but one kid specifically, I told him just get involved. So he started working at the door for a production company. And he said hello to everyone. Next thing you know, they were looking for someone to take over the desk position. They hired him because they liked how friendly he was. And he remembered everyone's name. And then he was at the desk, got to meet everybody from Chris Rock to you name it. From there, they hired him as a first PA. From there, office PA. From there, he was doing what he loved, writing room. He was an assistant
Yep.
to the writers now. Took him 2 years. But he never once was like, I'm a writer, look at my script, because that's when you fail. Because it's about you, not we. And the we perspective gets you somewhere. The me perspective keeps you in the closet, right? So you have to think beyond your script. And with that said, never compromise the value of your voice, because then you're not saying anything. And if you're not saying anything, then you're just putting out product. And if that's all you want to do, spec script the hell out of things. Send people for shows. Here's a version of Breaking Bad, or here's a version of whatever show is out there. Here's an NCIS. I want to be right on a wolf product, right? But now you're not really you're not writing your voice. You're just writing product. So you're not saying anything. So the idea, I get passionate about this. The idea to even change your work to what sells could sell negates the whole point of being a writer. Unless, of course, you just want to be a writer for money, right? But with that said, you can't write what sells because you don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I have clients that go, oh, I looked at X, Y, and Z movie, and I kind of created the beats from that movie. And I go, well, what are the beats? And they would just say what the beat is in the movie. I go, yeah, but what is the beat? What is the essence of that beat? What is the foundation of that beat? Why is that beat there? Well, because the car explodes and he's in danger, and you're like, that's not the beat. That's you visually see that,
Mhm.
but that's not what makes that moment work. You got to go back to the beginning of the script. Well, what do you mean? You can't start the movie with that moment, can you? And they're like, no, no. So that beat doesn't exist without all the beats beforehand. So you need to know what the through line is.
Mhm.
You know, it's like telling someone, I really like that moment where the head gets cut off. Oh, so what are you saying? I think you should start the show off with the decapitation. And you're like, but the decapitation doesn't work, right? Because there's a different. If you have seen Game of Thrones, the first decapitation is actually for Bran, right? That we kind of see his emotional through line in the very beginning of his ordinary world. The
Yeah.
second decapitation is Ned, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you built up that value. But if you started on his decapitation and his daughter, right, it
Yeah.
gets taken away, it wouldn't emotionally make sense.
Yeah.
It would be a different story. So, my point though is it's not necessarily about writing what works
Yeah.
or what could work, and more importantly, like if I critique, I look at it like an alpha reader would. I look at it where I'm saying, are you hitting the 27 beats that are in a story? Right. I'm
Mhm.
saying, are you do you have a beginning, a middle, and end?
Yeah.
Do the characters have clear positions? Do they have clear motivations? Right. But I hate
Mhm.
when people are like, I don't like that. It'd be great if that character was an astronaut. Like, cause that's not a real critique.
Yeah.
That's how I would write it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry. I
Yeah. No.
overtook the conversation, but
No, that's great. Yeah, no, I mean, you're saying all the same things that I agree with. It makes perfect sense to me, and you're much more articulate at this than I am because you clearly talk more about it than I do on a day to day basis. But yeah, and that was kind of like the point I was trying to get to about like you can look at all these other famous directors and their screenplays, and I think it's good practice to read other scripts to
yeah.
kind of get an idea. But those specific people, they break a lot of rules. And a lot of reasons why they break the rules is because they know, for example, it's a shooting script that I'm going to film.
Oh, you're
And
talking about format rules,
yeah,
not narrative rules.
yeah, not just format of rules.
Oh
Then I
yeah,
was
yeah.
going to
But
go
if
to
you're
other things. But
filming it,
yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
that's one of the biggest ones where I get a lot of friends or just acquaintances, and they're just like, oh, hey, here's the thing, and they'll be breaking all these rules, and like, oh, well, I followed J.J. Abrams or I followed this, and it's like, well, yeah, but like those are those guys, like they know what they're doing. They've made it. They don't have to. They can just do a solid page of text, and someone's going to be like, "This is brilliant." But if I were to do that, or anyone who's spec writing, you give someone a solid page of text without line breaks, they're like, "F this noise." Like no one's going to spend the time on that because like this person they assume doesn't know the rules.
But
Um,
Anderson got one of his movies made before he was Anderson, and he did that. He had pages upon pages of just visual action. But
okay.
his movies aren't very action based. But it was
Yeah.
because there was a voice. But he also built his relationships with people. He didn't just
Yeah.
go, "I'm a director. Here's a script." He built and cultivated a brand and a relationship with people that
Yeah.
led to his script being seen by the right person that liked
Exactly.
him. Um, but if you're going to write a script, again, you could do whatever you want, no matter who
Yeah.
you are. I don't think
Yeah.
somebody should look
Oh,
at Quentin Tarantino and write like him, or be
that's what I
like,
was
"How
trying
do
to
I?"
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you want to write direction, do it. But there
Yeah.
are faux pas, no matter who you are. Quentin
Yeah.
Tarantino doesn't really have camera direction in
Yeah.
his things, but he'll have perspective movements, and that's a little like if you're just like the camera moves along and the like. But if he's
Yeah.
like, I need a long shot here, he's allowed to write that note. right? Anyone is, because
Yeah.
it's narratively important. And that's the number one rule that you always have to maintain is uh, narrative movement. If you're writing a script and you're blocking or adding some camera movement or whatever the case may be, you're allowed to get away with it as long as it narratively makes sense and moves your story along. We're having a little technical difficulty. Matt's camera froze up. He's probably going to log out, log back in. It happens. But with that said, writing is a process. And, if you're trying to get your big break and you're going to do it through a script, or a novel, I recommend don't. I recommend writing and writing as much as you want, but that's not going to get you to the top. The top of the game is going to get you there when you officially learn more or less the industry, more or less the people you're involved with. So just be careful with that when you're writing. Like if you're writing a script,
The computer died.
sorry, your computer was like, "I'm done."
Yeah, no, not a rage quit. I'm sorry. Jesus Christ. Worst timing.
Can you turn your phone sideways?
Yep.
Oh yeah, landscape that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I was just telling the audience, like, your goal to be a successful writer, either novel or screenplay, is not to write a script to get discovered. It's always about getting involved in your industry. And I know too many people who just spend a lifetime just trying to write the perfect script. But, even Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were in the industry for a long time before their script, and they were writing their script for 10 years. But Spider-Man was written for 20 years. And Cameron, what's his name from Terminator? James Cameron was attached to it, at one point, and it still didn't get made. So you have to look at your path, your career in a different way, because product is never going to get you there. Even writers like novelists, their big breaks are 10 novels in. Their big breaks are these stories where they're overnight successes, but it took 10 years to get to the overnight. So,
gotta be prepared for that long haul, because very few people get that overnight instant. Hey, this is my first attempt. It's got to be a labor of love. It's got to be passion. You've got to, like you said, you got to have a voice, and don't, find your own unique voice. There's a reason why we cite people like, Quentin Tarantino, or like that's their voice, and they honed it and they promoted it, and now it's worked for them, and the author, like people, be true to yourself and tell the stories you want to tell and be passionate about it. And it's probably going to take a long time. We all hope that overnight we'll get that lottery ticket, so to speak, but be prepared that it might take 10 years or so.
Because the question is really like, why you? Like, just because you wrote a book or a script, why you?
Yeah, why your story?
Yeah. And people are like, well, I wrote it. It's great. People are going to love it. I know it's going to work because, there's this other thing that exists and this is like that, but it's better. And then you're like, yeah, but why you? And people have a hard time answering that. And it's like, you're telling me your thing that you spent a lifetime writing deserves my money. So I'm a studio and I'm going to give you money. A movie on minimum is going to cost $1 million.
Yeah.
Right.
They're very expensive.
They're very
then you
expensive.
Get into advertising, you get into promotion, you get all the, it's quickly a lot of money. I think like Matt Damon was recently talking about the change of how film industry used to be with the way that they would monetize things versus how it is today. And there's much less room for error, because back then they could rely on like DVD, VHS sales and DVD sales and those things. And now it goes straight to streaming, and they're trying to figure out how to monetize that. But you still have promotion. What's that?
They just did that with the strike. It just ended. They just got their
and they just did that.
Yeah,
but up until this past week, it was a very challenge for the creative team and the producers, and it was very challenging to figure out that piece. And so films just cost more nowadays. And then you look into the additional costs that most people normally don't think about, like the advertisements and the publicity and all that stuff, like that adds behind the scenes money that we're not paying attention to.
Yeah, but also a lot of people think I don't need to advertise it because once people start seeing it, they're going to talk about it and it's going to make lots of money. And then you go, well, why aren't you starting small? Why aren't you renting a theater if you believe in your product? You spent $60,000 on an independent film, but you can't go touring with it. Oh, you can't tour a film. Why? Kevin Smith does. He's Kevin Smith. Oh yeah, but you just said your movie's great.
Yeah.
So start off small, right? You got to think like a bit. If you want to be a producer, you don't think scripts, you think money.
Yeah,
because
that's a business.
Yeah, a producer's job is not to be creative. That's a separate job. There's the artist brain and the business brain. Artist brain, don't let the business brain mess with the artist brain, and don't let artist brain mess with the business brain. You want to create, but don't think about the business. Don't write scripts or novels going, what sells? Oh, vampires, let's do a vampire movie. No, you go, what do I have to say, and what is important to me to say? Once that's done, shut your artist brain off and start getting the business brain working and going, how do we create money?
Yeah.
Right? Because you got supply and demand. Yeah. And you got to create, and you can't be like, hey, friends and family, can you come to the movies and see my, no, you got to create demand. So you got to do that through marketing, but you start off small. When I was in a band, Matt, people used to say, I can't book you. And I go, why not? They go, how many people do you draw? And I go, I don't know. Give me a pen and paper. I'll draw everybody. And they're like, no, how many people do you bring to a show? And I go, 50. I just made up a number because I just wanted to play. And he's like, you bring your band. I've never heard of you. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get 50 people here. And we did the show, and, you know, our girlfriends and some family showed up, but they don't count. You can't count them, right? They're not fans. So I realized I had to go, how do I fill up a 20-person room? If I can consistently fill up 20 people, I know I can go to 30 or 40 or 50. If I can consistently do. And one day I started getting asked as a band to play Coliseums. I played the U.S. Cellular Arena. I played, right? I toured all over the place, but I didn't get there because I was great.
Yeah.
I got there because I started off and I proved myself small. And right? Because they always say level up. You got to, but you can't start at the top. You can't be like, well, I wrote this.
Yeah.
It's my first script.
Give me $100 million.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. I'll get Robert De Niro to do it. That's the other thing.
That's why a lot of like people, not everyone, there's, you know, you talk to anybody, there's like 100 different ways to kind of skin that cat. Like some people, I entered a competition, I became famous. I
name one person.
To a person. I sent a cold call letter.
Wait, go back. Name one person who entered their film into a festival and became famous. By the way, I know the stories, and I can actually debunk those stories because I know how they got. Because I study success.
I don't know the person's name.
One person.
This is like the advice I have heard of, like people telling me to send to competitions because it worked for them, and I'm like, probably not. And then, but I mean, like, there's like 100 different ways to, you know, that one person says the things and just do. But talking kind of on that subject, though, there is something to be said about, you know, film your own thing. You know, if you believe in your ability as a writer, particularly a screenwriter, that, you know, start small and maybe, you know, do a short, get a little practice with that, get a little experience with that. And, you know, a lot of, not a million or lots, but like a significant number of like directors got started doing, you know, like either music videos or, you know, short films or horror movies, which are notoriously, you can do those on a budget. And it, you know, Blair Witch Project became an overnight sensation. That was a college thing. You know, like there's a lot of, you know, horror movies, shorts, music videos, but honing the craft, getting experience, kind of learning the procedures. That is one method that does seem to at least bear some fruit compared to more, you know, other scenarios.
So filming leads to success.
I think that, you know, the more you experience it, the more you get a mind for it. Just like, you know, the more you write, the better you become at writing, you know, rather than.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Now, I know Blair Witch was successful monetarily, but you use that as an example. How did Blair Witch get in the theaters?
I'm honestly not sure. I mean, they did it for a college project, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Well, let's just logically think about this.
Yeah.
Did they make millions upon millions of dollars because they filmed Blair Witch?
Honestly, don't know. I just know that
Well,
it was.
there's only a yes or no.
Yeah, I don't know.
When they
I've
finished
never
that
actually watched
movie,
the movie.
no,
I don't really like horror movies.
I'm just I'm deductive reasoning. I'm trying to learn because you
Yeah.
said they were a success. When they finished filming that, how many bags of money did they have to take to the bank the moment they closed that they shut the film buckets on those? How much money did they make once they said cut? We're done.
Honestly, I'm not sure. Like I said, I think
It
it
would have to
was
be
a
zero.
college project, so they probably weren't making money because they were doing it for their class. That's
No,
the way I
I'm saying
understood it.
let's say let's say I'm filming you now.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is Blair Witch. And then we finish the interview and I shut the interview. I say, all right, have a great day. And I hit end
Mm.
and it's still on my computer. How much money did I just make?
Well, you didn't make anything until it's promoted
So how
and
much
sold.
money did the Blair Witch Project make for being filmed?
Probably nothing. I mean, I'm assuming.
It would have to be nothing, right?
Yeah.
Because as soon as they said cut, did anyone come over to them with bags of money?
No.
No, right? So my question is, how did they get in the theater? Did they sneak in and despite whoever paid and rented for the theater, they just put it on and then they just took the money from the drawers because they were like, well, people saw our movies that we snuck in, so we get the money, and they had to do that. How do you think they made their way into theaters?
I'm not sure.
But you're saying if you film something,
yeah,
you'll be successful. You could be.
Yeah, it could be. There's no guarantees
I'm
in anything.
How. I'm asking how.
I mean, again, I'm not.
That's what this show's about. It's to get people thinking. Because you're saying if I write a book, will that make me successful?
No.
If I film a movie, will that make me successful?
No.
So what is it?
I think more than anything, the way I kind of view it is it opens the opportunities for you. That if you are actively promoting your work, whether it's a written novel or screenplay or short film, music video, what have you, if you take the active measures, be proactive in your own story and be wise about it. Don't, make sure you're following the right steps. You're not getting taken advantage of, copyright your, do the due diligence, but go to festivals or go to things, whatever you can do. If, depending on what
with your movie.
I'm sorry.
Do you go to the festival with your movie, or can you just go?
I think that so I actually just recently filmed my first short film. It's a short zombie flick called Help. And it is an official selection at several competitions. And I'm going to visit them and just try to network, like, hey, I'm so-and-so. Who are you? What do you do? Just shoot this shit, kind of like we are right here. And I think a lot of things is not necessarily always what you know, it's who you know in a lot of circumstances in life, and just networking and putting yourself out there.
Do I have to film something to get into the festivals, or can I go?
You can go as a fan. You can go as.
Well, what if I want to go as a filmmaker?
I mean, you can be a filmmaker who didn't have something in the show, but still get a ticket.
And how many festivals have you gone to where you didn't get into it?
Well, I mean, I've done like Annapolis Film Festival and New York Film Festival. Those. Yeah, so I've gone to several different things just for fun as a fan, to just sit in panels, ask questions, learn a little bit about the trade. This upcoming festival next weekend will be the first one that I will attend where I actually have a film also in the festival.
And this one you're going to network, but the other ones you just went to learn stuff.
Mostly learn, because I am a little bit of an introvert. So it takes a lot for me to kind of be like, hi, here's a business card. I don't really, that's not my natural.
That's marketing. When you give a business card, that's marketing. Networking is actually elevating the relationships, right?
But this will be the first time where I actually have like something to kind of do with there. So I'm like, oh yeah, I have a film here.
Interesting.
And just talking to people, meet people, and you never know what doors or opportunities will open up from that.
So if I was a filmmaker, if I didn't have a film that was in the festival, it wouldn't be a good idea to kind of walk around and just kind of talk with people. I think it would still be good. To have a film there.
I think it absolutely helps your credibility to have a film there, but it doesn't hurt your chances to still just offer a conversation. I mean, there's a lot of actors or PAs, or there are a lot of people of all stages of the industries that would be at these things that just might be looking to, again, network.
I'm new to all this, so I'm just trying to
Oh,
understand.
really? Okay. Sorry.
I've never actually in my entire life been involved in the entertainment industry.
Really?
But we have people listening to the show
Yeah.
that are also naive like me. So that's why I'm asking such specific
Okay.
questions.
Gotcha. Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were like, yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, especially if you're an extrovert. I'm not very good at that, just
You're an
being
introvert.
honest. Yeah. It takes a lot for me to be like, just approach a stranger in the cold. But some people are extremely good at that. But yeah, it's absolutely, especially if you have interest. I mean, you're literally going to be in rooms with, I'm not saying these are Oscar winning people possibly, but they could be, depends on the festival you go to, but you
Is it
will
better
be
that they're Oscar winners? Like if they're not as important?
kind
I'm
of
just
like that
asking
story.
questions. I'm just
No,
asking
it is.
questions.
No, I think similar to that anecdote that you gave earlier about the guy that you mentored who just started by opening doors. And then
Yeah.
he got moved to answering phones and so forth. Like,
And again, I don't know anything about the industry, so I don't even know how
so,
that worked.
for example, like I have worked on like music videos and commercials and short series and things of that here and around the Baltimore and
Excellent.
DMV area,
Yeah.
all through word of mouth, meeting people and working behind they're.
So they saw your movie, and then
No, this is before
they
that.
said all the word of mouth. So you don't need a movie.
No, you
To
don't.
get,
Yeah, I mean, I was
all
like, hey,
right.
I like to write. Who would who would like a writer?
I thought you were giving advice saying you have to have one to find success, but it
Mm,
sounds like you were getting referred and having a successful career in the industry without a product.
yeah, you can. I mean, there's no surefire linear step by step 1, 2, 3, 4 must do these 1, 2, 3, 4s.
So you don't
It
need a
can be any
product,
method.
say.
Yeah, like having your own film can be useful. Not
Yeah.
having your own film, it's not gonna stop you.
So all right. So you don't need a product, is what you're saying.
You know, it's helpful, but it's not always necessary.
But how is it helpful?
It's like a calling card. It's like a resume. You can literally point to this thing on screen and be like, look what I made.
So
You know?
if I'm just trying to follow
Yeah.
the process. So if I'm like, I'm going to film a movie, right? I'm not involved in the industry. I'm just amazing. I'm great because I'm a writer and everything, right?
Mm.
So I write something and then I film it with my own money and I put it on a screen. I can now be like, hey, look, I made this. Why should people care?
I mean, as in all things, it's an artwork. It's subjective. Some people might connect with that.
And then I win.
And who knows? I mean, it's more about putting yourself in an opportunity, maximizing the opportunity to open doors, open opportunity to meet people that might want to either hire you or collaborate with you, or at the very least, like, hey, I know someone that might, it's a lot of just word of mouth, and that's how it's at least works for me.
The word of mouth, is it the word of mouth or is it the product? I'm confused.
There's not one way. It's any of the things.
Saying word of mouth or like you get to meet people. Do I need the product to meet those people to have them interested in me? Am I doing things to be interested in, or am I doing things to get involved? Like I'm trying to understand. Like, is my goal to be like, look, I'm a writer, hire me, pay me? Or am I like, because like Steven Spielberg clearly just filmed Jaws out of nowhere in the back of his backyard. And then they were just like, this guy's the god of filming. Let's give him all the opportunity. Like he wasn't actually involved or doing anything before that, right? Like he didn't sneak onto Universal lot and start becoming friends with people and working and volunteering his time. And like, he wasn't telling people, look what I filmed. Like he didn't do that. He just filmed Jaws. And then he was the next big thing, right?
I'm not sure about his path to success, but I mean, I'm pretty sure he was a college student, and he had also networked with quite a few people. If I recall correctly, I'm not.
But he networked. Did he use Jaws to get in, or how did that work?
Pretty sure he had a short film before that. So
that's
I mean,
not how he got Jaws, though.
I'm not a Jaws or a
Jaws lost its director because the film was a debacle, and people were friends with a little known person as Steven Spielberg. And he had built such a reputation on the Universal lot, and he has all these friends that they said, you direct, right? You want to be a director? And he basically said, yeah. And they go, do you want to direct this movie Jaws? You think you could do it? And he said, yeah, knowing that he might fail. But a director's job is mostly solution finding. And he was good at solution finding.
Yeah.
But did he get Jaws because he filmed Jaws? Did his short film get him Jaws?
It's mostly network. I mean, from the stories that I hear, it's networking.
It's all networking.
And putting yourself in a situation to network, whether you have a film in a film festival or but just being around the people that you want to be around.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to be a writer, hang around writers. If you want to be a movie maker, hang around movie makers. If you want to be lazy, hang around lazy people on a couch doing nothing. I mean, you are kind of who you do things with. And so surround yourself around, getting experience. I just asked around if anyone needed a writer, and they're like, no, we don't need a writer, but we could use a grip. I was like, I don't know what the heck a grip is, but sure.
It's the electric department.
They're like, pick up heavy things.
Not that I know. I'm not in the industry.
Yeah. So I just started working as a grip, picking up heavy stuff, putting it down, helping set stuff up, tearing it down, but I was on sets. They weren't, Universal or anything. They were just local Baltimore little things. And from there, people are like, oh, hey, I'm sorry.
Have you ever been a best boy?
I've not been a best boy. No.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
They have girls as best boys, which is always funny.
No, I'm not that good of a boy, but I've done.
You know what a best boy is, right?
I have skipped past that one.
It's part of the electric department. You wear a grip.
So I don't really do much with electric, actually.
But it is a part of the electric. I know, but a grip, they're assistants to the department. So they wrap up things, they lay things down, they tape up. That's what they do. But the best boy is a part of the electric. But I'm not a part of the industry. I don't know the terminology or how it works. I didn't retire at 26. After only 10 years of being.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like, oh, we've been doing this for an hour, Matt. I have to call it a night. But I ask everyone the same question. This is about writing. I don't want to convolute the process for anyone to become successful. So we're not gonna jump on. We're gonna go to writing. We're gonna talk about writing. I asked everyone the same question. Okay. What is one piece of advice you discovered about writing, either through someone else or yourself, through research, that completely changed the way you approach the writing process?
That's a very good one. I think be true to yourself and the way that you write. There's a lot of advice out there. You're going to get a lot of feedback, and learning how to receive feedback well and to be able to read between the lines of like, what is the actual note here? Just because someone says they don't like something and then they maybe offer a solution, it doesn't mean that you have to take the solution, but it probably does mean there's something wrong with that section. Like, if they don't like the relationship, you might need to tweak the relationship, but not necessarily take the specific feedback that they gave as far as a solution. That's one note that I chased that. I often took every piece of advice and feedback as gospel and did a lot of rewrites based off of that stuff. And that cost me, I think, a lot of time. Yeah. So learning how to pick between the feedback, what is good, what is not, and understand the note that they're really telling you, but not necessarily always take the feedback.
So as a writer, you're saying, listen to the context, the subtext, not the context.
Yeah, because you'll get some objectively bad suggestions where, like you said, like, make this guy an astronaut. It's like, but this is a coal mining story. That doesn't make sense. But there might be a problem that they're addressing, but their pay attention to that. And I think that's one. Don't chase every piece of feedback you get, because they're not all created equal. Yeah,
there was this, I forget who it was. They were doing an interview. They're definitely like a successful person, but their advice was basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was it was ultimately like, if they say they don't like it, don't listen. If they give you a specific, there's something. even if that specific is not, like you said, doesn't make sense. Because if they're specific, if they're just like, I don't understand what's going on with these two people's relationship, is more informative than I like or don't like, or make this an astronaut, because their opinion is not perception. Their opinion is usually how they would write it or what they want to see. But when they're telling you something's not working, now, well, all right, it might not be the relationship, but something about that relationship is not working. So that's to dive deeper. So yeah, that's that. See, now that's great advice you just gave there, Matt.
Only took an hour.
Yeah, I would not contradict that advice. That was actually that was
appreciate it.
Well, you got to remember, a lot of newbies and people who have been doing this for a while, but they're trying to get their footing. They come in, and my job is because my big thing is, like, I have to pull the curtain back and stop misconceptions. And there was a few. I like you as a person, and I think you're a fantastic writer. I've read some of your stuff. But again, it's not on you. It's just if I'm hearing misconceptions, my life has been dedicated to. In fact, again, I'm not in the industry, but I've been paid to speak at colleges on this, and I got to speak all over the world. By world, I mean America and Canada. But the idea is we have to, as individuals, stop the misconceptions. And
100%.
For those listening, please do not try to become successful based on a product. If you do, your career has already stopped. You got to get involved, because it's we mentality, not me mentality. Because if you go at it for you and what can you do for me, you've already been blacklisted, because no one wants to work with you if it's always about you. Your job, like, you're a writer, Matt, right? Your job is, how do we help other people that want to be writers, or what can you do to get their scripts going? Do you know someone you could refer that can help their project, even though you get nothing out of it? Because those relationships are more important than, look at what I wrote. My thing is awesome. Because we're biased. Obviously, everything we write is going to be awesome. You know how hard it is to write? Just to come up with an idea. That makes it beautiful. Of course, anything anyone creates, even if it's quote unquote objectively crappy, that's gorgeous. Like, it's so hard. So hard to think of an idea and then write it.
And be supportive. I think that's another thing is, be supportive to everyone in this. Not everyone's going to be writing Shakespeare their first time out, or even their 100th time out, but find a way to be kind and supportive with your feedback and constructive. Don't say this didn't work and then offer, be an astronaut, but try to find a way to help the writer help themselves by giving constructive feedback with suggestions that you can, bounce off them just to help them. But so I think that's another thing. Just be supportive of everybody.
Especially when it comes to craft and art and stuff like that. But again, if you want a career, network, market, practice. It's the people the people who know you, and how well you know the industry. And if you focus on your craft only, and like, I wrote this, look at this, how can you help me? You're not networking, you're not marketing, and you're not understanding your business. You're just waiting for, I hope someone recognizes my skill and my talent. And the reality is, every success story out there has never happened because somebody wrote or filmed something, even though it looks like it. It looks like it, because again, Blair Witch did make lots of money, but it only got into the theater because there were definitely people involved, and there was definitely marketing involved. Because if you make something and I go, hey, Matt, I made this, that's marketing, not the product has nothing to do with it. But it's how I tell you I made this that makes you interested, because you didn't see the film yet. So if I go, hey, Matt, I filmed this, you should watch it. And you're like, I don't know who you are. And you just take it so I'd shut up, right? Because I was in the music industry, and I've seen people take CDs from nobodies, and they're like, yeah, I'll listen to it. And then they throw them out. Because the reality is, you have the emotion to the thing you made. You are in love with the thing you made. But you have to market who you are, so people have your impression left on them. And they're like, I like Matt. Matt, what are you working on? And now you can say, I'm a writer, I have this thing. But if you start with a product, I guarantee you, no one in the history of life has ever been successful because they made something. right? Because even Ford had to show somebody the car, right? He didn't just build a car and then wait for people to show up. He had to go, hey, we have cars. And then someone was like, you have cars? And he was like, I have cars. And they were like, they're really affordable. Marketing, you found a solution. We don't have a lot of money, but these are affordable and they get made quick. You have a supply. I'm in. Right now it's found on road dead. So marketing went a little south. But my point, because it's Ford found on road dead, it's an acronym, right? So, but my point is, what we make is not our success. What we do creates success. And that doesn't mean what we film, what we write, what we play music as, where we perform. If you focus on relationships, both who you know, who knows you, and your relationship with yourself to understand your strengths and weaknesses, you will find success if you get involved in your industry.
Yeah.
But if you say, I wrote this, or I made this, or come see me do comedy, listen to my band, I swear to you, no one cares because they don't. Who are you? Why you? You have to ask that to yourself. And that I'm not trying to discourage. Create, be artful, build stuff, write stuff, make stuff. But those shouldn't be the things you use as your anchor to open doors. Because again, who opens the door? People. Right? They didn't see your movie. They didn't read your script. They didn't watch your comedy. Right? How many? You're probably not in a comedy. When I was in you know how many comedians watch other comedians? Almost none of them, unless they are friends or they're successful. Because successful comedians will watch each other, but it doesn't always work that way. Anyway, Mr. Matt, listen. All right, that was great. Thanks. Thanks for being on. How do people find you? What's your website?
Instagram JMP Walsh 83 and Facebook John Matthew Walsh.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so very much, Mr. Matt. As always, you got to keep developing the right mindset and keep doing what you're doing. That's why it's called the right mindset. All right. I'll talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.